Welcome you for being here tonight.
Hi, guys.
We just had a very enthusiastic screening. The print was fantastic. Lots of cheers. And tons of appreciation for how well this film holds up. It's just a load of fun.
It is fun.
And I'm really glad that you guys have put out a special edition and you're still supporting the movie, and Roger Corman's company is very supportive of it. So it makes things like this really fantastic for horror fans. So let's talk a little bit about where you were in your career prior to the movie. We'll start at the beginning. Now I know you have a background in photography and making documentaries. You also worked on Taxi Driver. You edited Joe Dante's first film, Roger Corman. How did this kind of stuff prepare you for making your own first feature?
I think every single thing was a different piece of the pie. I had been a documentary filmmaker. I wanted to be a documentary filmmaker, and I couldn't make any money at it because this was so long ago that we shot on film, not video. There wasn't any video, and it was very expensive. But a documentary that I made won the AFI Student Film Festival. Scorsese was one of the judges, and he gave me a job on Taxi Driver after seeing my documentary. That kind of got me into features. Features were completely unlike documentaries. I had absolutely no idea how they were made before I did that, but I was on the set of Taxi Driver when I was 21, and I went and watched all those various cuts and stayed with Marty all the way through. So that was a learning experience. Joe was the first feature, was the first 35mm feature, and it was, in the hard scrabble, that was learning what it was like for the low-budget end as opposed to that. Actually, people don't realize Taxi Driver was a very low-budget movie, too, but it was a big studio film, a lot more money than we ever had before it was Roger Corman. And then I was an editor, and I had just been working with Hal Ashby on the Hal Ashby picture, and Hal taught me everything there was to know about editing. He was a great Oscar-winning editor himself. So I was in a pretty good place, even though I was only 27 when I made this film. And it definitely was flying by the seat of our pants. It was a crazy situation where I had gotten hold of the script, a version of the script by Rita Mae Brown, which had a prologue, which isn't in the film. And I had shot the prologue on my own short ends and put it together on Joe's movie at night while he was doing the Howling. And on the basis of that, Roger gave me the money, to my surprise, to make the rest of the movie. I hadn't actually read the rest of the script. So I had to rewrite the script. So it really was total immersion where I had to learn to cast and to prepare and help produce and completely rewrite. It was the first thing I had ever written. And then suddenly I was on a set with all these people. But it's amazing the movie I just did. And part of that is Rita Mae Brown too, because although I did a very big rewrite on the script, there was the bones of something fun and interesting was there that Rita did, which was the sort of, believe it or not, I think of it as a feminist slasher movie, because I think the metaphor is about young women's fear of getting laid for the first time. And at the time, I was vilified in the press for doing this for a woman directing a slasher movie. Everybody thought it was horrible that I did that. But I thought it was a lot of fun.
Certainly see throughout the film, not just in the writing, but also in the direction, the way there's gender role reversals, the way that the female characters work together, sort of the goofiness of some of the male characters. I think you really get a sense that there is a feminist string going through the film for sure. Now that said, what kind of significant changes were made from the original script, which was called Don't Open the Door, I believe, and what you brought to screen? Of course, Roger would have had a few certain things he wanted. I'm sure he guessed what that is, but tell us a bit about how you changed the story.
Well, I put the humor. It wasn't really funny. It was some big structural differences. I rewrote it for limited locations because I didn't think we could make it for the amount of money we had. It was made for $200,000 on film, which was very low. And I didn't think we could make it and do company moves. And so I put two houses next to each other, and those are the main locations, apart from the school and the teacher's house, for the whole thing. And so you lose a lot of time when you're doing a low-budget film if the entire company has to move to a different location. So that way we get locked down in those two locations. There's a lot of changes. About what you can credit Rita McGrath very much is that metaphor of the guy with the grill and the slumber party and all of that stuff. The script was, something I don't think she had her heart deeply in. I think she kind of whipped it off. But the main thing is all the humor and many of the characters. The next door neighbor and pizza and all of that stuff was all. It was a good rewrite. In fact, Roger was the first person who told me I could write. He's all right.
The extras on the DVD this week, and I was struck by the stories about Michael Villella, who plays Russ Thorne, his method acting approach. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that. I heard it was pretty intense.
Yeah, he tried to stay in character, which was pretty funny because the taxi driver was venting through De Niro. It was not the high end and the low end of any acting character. But he's the nicest guy in the world. A very sweet fellow. So I don't know. I guess that's what he had to do. But I thought he did a great job. He didn't hang around and talk to anybody. He was always doing his own thing. My favorite moment with him actually is the comedy one that he did comedy, which is when he's counting the bodies in the back of the trunk. I think that's very fun.
Now, was it a specific choice to change up your slasher character and actually give him a voice and a face? That's one of the things that really stands out about this film.
Because of the theme that you needed say the Halloween movies and so on. Yeah, it was a choice, I guess. This is how naive I was. Before I was given this to direct by Roger after doing the prologue, I had never seen Halloween and I had never seen Friday the 13th. So I then looked at them, but didn't, of course, try to differentiate from them. I wanted to know something about it. Maybe it's silly to do it, but it seemed kind of cheap to go through the whole thing and know nothing about him. But the idea that he had some anger from his past that wasn't had been done by the other movies, so we had to do something different. And Michael was creepy, so he's not a creepy person, but he was playing it nicely creepy.
He does creepy very well. Let me take a question from someone in the audience. Who's got a question for Amy? Right there.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about, the nudity, and was that one of the requirements that Roger had in order for you to get this film?
The question is about the Roger Corman requisite nudity. And maybe perhaps how you sort of felt about that as a female director, having to sort of put these women through their paces in the slasher genre.
Well, I didn't feel that great about it, but, and I think you can see it in the way that shower scene is shot. The shower scene at school is sort of definitely the requisite nudity scene. I had to go through the same thing on the next film that I did, Love Letters, which was an art film for Roger Corman. But I think if you look at the way I shot it, I'm sort of just, here it is, I'm going to pan over them, this is what you want, you got it, now we're moving on, and it was what you had to do. John and Debbie did it, Scorsese did it, and everybody who worked for Roger did it. So, was that more repulsive to me than cutting people up? No. It isn't. I don't find nudity more repulsive than sticking people with knives.
So much when the film first came out, and now it's quite celebrated, particularly among horror fans. When did you first get a sense that there was an appreciation for this movie?
Well, the dancing always worked. Critics are not always right. And I remember the first screening that we had. First of all, we showed it to Roger, and Roger was famous for taking movies away from people and recutting it and taking complete control. But he only did that when he didn't like what he saw, and he liked what he saw from the very beginning. And he was a master filmmaker and a great businessman, so that was a good vacation. But then we had a really hilarious preview where we got a movie theater on Hollywood Boulevard, which was at that time pretty sleazy, and ran presented a picture, and nobody, of course, knew what they were getting. And it was a packed audience for Slumber Party Massacre, and the audience was berserk. They completely went nuts. They were screaming, talking back, screaming, making buzzing sounds like a drill. And I actually was kind of traumatized by this because, among other things, I was supposed to be, I wasn't there before I did this, and I had gotten the big break of the action picture, the remodel of the action picture, and I was supposed to cut E.T. That was my next job. I was going to be the editor of E.T. And I had to give that up to direct Slumber Party Massacre. Now, nobody knew E.T. was going to be as big as it was going to be, but that was Spielberg. It was an amazing thing to be 27 years old and you could cut E.T. And I loved that script. And so I was in this preview thinking, oh my God, what have I done? All these people were making drilling sounds and yelling back at the screen, and I gave up the chance to do this charming movie. What have I done? And I walked out to the lobby pretty traumatized, and Roger was there. And I said, Roger, what have we done? And he said, oh no, this is the best review in New World history. And, I took his word for it. And then we get to cast and crew, and the cast and crew went nuts. And I have to tell you, if you make a film flawed and you show it to your cast and crew, they let you know, they're disappointed. And my cast and crew wasn't. And I just always thought it was a lot of fun, I really did. And I do to this day. And I'm quite proud of it. It's a crazy little thing, but it's fun.
Making this film shape your career, what did you take away from it?
Absolutely nothing. People don't really realize what it was like back then for women. It's bad enough for women directors now, but women virtually did not direct back then. And in fact, they weren't even on crew very much. I have a crew picture from Taxi Driver, and there's about 50 people there on the crew, and there are 3 women in that picture out of the 50, and one is hair and makeup, and one is wardrobe, and one is me. And that's pretty much what crew looks like. And that's where directors come from. And the standard line was that it's like running an army and women aren't generals of armies. And Roger let women have that kind of power because he liked powerful women and because women worked for not that much money. We were trying to prove ourselves. And so he gave me that break, but what happened when it came out was that it got nasty reviews to the degree it was reviewed, which essentially said, I can't believe a woman with suits could direct a picture like this. So I guess that not only was it impossible for us to make it, we weren't allowed to make it by the routes that every single other director and actor in Hollywood was taking, which was through the exploitation films. Somehow I was supposed to get out there with no personal fortune, no income, and no family connections, and make it without making an exploitation film. And let me tell you, that was been impossible. But it didn't get me anything. I sat down and, nobody called me. I didn't get an agent. Nothing happened. There was nobody pushing forward any more work. And so I looked around and I thought, well, Roger wants me to do something else, and he wanted me to do an exploitation film. And I told him I wouldn't do it. And he then had 2 distribution networks. He distributed to the theater I'm driving near you with the exploitation films, but he also distributed True Love films and Amarcord and things like that, archive pictures. So I said, why don't we make something for the archive division? And it will go to VHS, which was what we had then before DVD. And he said to me, well, I don't do anything, but it has to have a commercial hook. And I have to say that's a lesson that everyone still needs to learn. And the commercial hooks for him and for almost everybody to this day in the business and every aspect of it are sex, violence, and humor. And if you don't have any of those 3, nobody's going to show up. You have at least one of them. It's better if you have all 3. So I wrote Love Letters, which was a picture with Jamie Lee Curtis, and it was about an extramarital affair, and it had sex in it. And he did indeed make it. Roger gave me my next break. And that one did the art film circuit and did very well, and got some wonderful reviews, and still no one offered me anything at all. And then I wrote Mr. Giza for myself to direct. And I thought it was going to be my diner. And ultimately, when it was finally made, It was, by the time it was made, I had directed 3 movies. I directed another movie called Made to Order, which I rewrote with Charlie Sheen and Brian Dixon. The woman gave it to a guy who directed, never directed any features. She did not write the script. And that was that. And, you know, it never really happened. And people after that paid me to write. It was not paying me to direct. It didn't matter what I did. And Made to Order made money. Love Letters was hitting on the festival circuit. Slumber Party Massacre was so successful for Roger, he would make it 2 or 3 times. Versus Slumber Party films and, you know, in other iterations, because we made it over and over again. They lost much on it. But it didn't make any difference. They didn't really want women directing them. And I didn't get another chance until the mid-90s. And by then I had kind of become a screenwriter. I think that what Slumber Party Massacre did was mainly for me, in my head, which is I really like the film. I think it's hilarious. And I think it's really funny. But for my career, all it did was get Roger to give me another film, which also didn't get me very far, but was also coming back to this another movie.
Do you think that things have changed significantly for women in the film industry who want to direct?
Yeah, I think it's still in all aspects of the industry, people think of it as a liberal industry, and it's actually incredibly reactionary. It's run by liberals, but they hire and pay in a reactionary way within the industry themselves. So, I think the percentage of stuff directed by women still is in the 5 or 6% or less. It's very, very low. But the avenues for getting a theater are better, you know, and you always have to big lows. It did win the Oscar, but I mean, and I think her Daughter is a fantastic film, but it's kind of significant and interesting that she won for a picture which virtually has not a single woman in it. It's a war movie. It's what you think of as a male movie had to be the one to win the first Oscar. And that's because they devalue movies as women in the lead. They're not considered as interesting. They're secondary. And that hasn't really gone away. It hasn't even gone away in writing. It's always been easier in writing and editing where people would hire me in those jobs. But, you know, the last I worked in television now, and the last thing I had shot, it was wonderful, and it was about kids going to Harvard Medical School, and it tested higher than all the other pilots, and it was funny and compelling and sort of like on a speech at medical school because there was a lot of kids. And they picked up Hellcat instead, which was about cheerleaders with parent interest. And it was kind of like wherever I'm going back to want me. You can't send Harvard Medical School students up against naked cheerleaders. In the end, you know, the fact that nothing has changed about that.
Okay. I've got a question for you from the audience. The question is, how closely did you work with Rita Mae Brown on Slumber Party?
Not a bit. You know, the script had been on the shelf. The reason I got hold of the script was I wanted to direct. I went to work with Marty wanting to direct, and I had ended up being an editor for about 5 years. I also cut a documentary for Marty called American Boy. And then I did short film, and then I did a feature called Horror for MGM, and then I did the Ashby picture all before I was 26 years old. And I had a lot of shine as an editor because they accepted women as editors. Women were that category were allowed to be in. And I was young, and that was, for his friends, it was pretty good. And so it was a sort of a thing to have somebody that young who was also interesting.